What is up, Internet? Welcome back to the Jameson Brandon channel, where we talk about all things money and macro. And today we are going to dive into this Evergrande construction company Lehman moment disaster that is upon us. I can't help but think and have PTSD to a degree of back to early 2020 when we started seeing the viral videos of apartment buildings being welded shut to contain a possible virus, and just the, obviously last couple of years that's ensued. Well, it appears though we've got a parallel in terms of in the financial markets happening as well. Whereas Fortune 500 company, one of the largest, if not the largest, I believe it is the largest construction company in China, is on the borderline of default. So I sent out this email last night and I wanted to recap it with you. I was actually thinking of doing a live stream with this, but kind of ran out of time, and so I want to get this information out there, so let's dive right in. Here's the short and sweet to catch you up with everything that is kind of going on right now. All right, so we've got Evergrande. They are a Fortune 500 company. They own more than 1,300 real estate projects in over 280 cities in China. Its property services management arm is involved in nearly 2,800 projects across more than 310 cities in China. The firm says it employs 200,000 people, but touches upwards of 3.8 million jobs every single year, according to its own website. The shares and bonds are included in indexes all across Asia, as we've started to see the ripple effect. They currently owe 300 billion. Yes, that's 300 billion with a B. Keep in mind, Lehman Brothers, which was about 13 years ago now, owed 600 billion when it fell at the time, and again, adjust for inflation. 800 projects in China still remain unfinished, and they are trying to offload unfinished projects and let people, essentially buy out and take over, unfinished projects because they can't pay all these people back, these retail investors. More than 1 million people actually right now are still waiting to move into their new homes. The company builds about 600,000 homes annually, which is huge, dude. Like huge. I don't know if there's another company, is there a company in America, comment below, that does over 600,000 homes annually? That just seems like an astronomical amount of residences that they build every year. Over the last decade, the company's debt levels have grown by 56 times, or 56x, and, well, shocker, but 4 bank execs are currently under investigation for selling their stocks just before all of this came public and the dump ensued. Okay, keep in mind at the time of writing this that the stock has plummeted 81% this year, and it's being hailed already as the biggest Ponzi scheme ever. Evergrande was valued at 87 billion with a B earlier this year, and they have 7 different units or divisions, dabbling in many different areas. They launched a bottled water company that they sold recently. They launched a football team and a football academy, soccer, for US people. They started building a huge football stadium that was shaped in the size of a lotus that could seat 100,000 people, never got finished, and an electric car business that hadn't sold a single car. So that is why it's being hailed as a huge Ponzi. But let's go back in time a little bit to 2015. We borrowed some commentary from the guy who wrote the book, Larry McDonald, where he was talking about essentially the impulse that led the way and showed us what was about to happen with Standard Chartered, which is the bank that defaulted that caused the ripple effect in 2015. That event in and of itself, remember, was basically the reason why a lot of Chinese citizens, most retail China, will not invest in the stock market. Understand that because the population is predominantly men, is that it's very important that the man have a house. So oftentimes the entire family, aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody gets involved and pools their money together to buy an apartment or buy a house so that the man can have a house so that he can get married to the woman. This is very important to them. And the reason why the real estate bubble got as big as it might be right now, as I'm sure you're wondering, is because this 2015 event was a shell shock for a lot of people, and they didn't want to get involved in the stock market anymore. So they went into real estate, and because the money was so easy, kind of led to this. Okay, so anyways, that's the precursor. But in 2015, there was huge problems that occurred, and basically, got a lot of people, most retail, scared to invest in the stock market, which is why they all moved into real estate. Okay, so the bigger issues in China. Here's just a sampling. Like I went to one spot to get this data, by the way. So there's got to be so much more. It's ridiculous, but I'm not going to spend all day long researching this. We all know that China's built on debt. Their GDP is driven by debt. They will build phantom cities. They will build, buildings that never get occupied, stuff that never comes to fruition because it was so cheap to build there, and the money was so cheap. That's what they would do, and they would make their GDP look good so that they, even though they were considered an emerging market, they're still one of the largest markets on the fucking planet with over 1 billion people in their country. Chinese corporations owe $1.3 trillion in the next 12 months. That's data as of May 2021. The initial months of 2020, over 200,000 companies declared bankruptcy. So let that sink in. I mean, we had a big fallout with small businesses because the money money. The PPP and the EIDL just couldn't get out fast enough in America, but 200,000 companies declared bankruptcy. I don't remember hearing a single thing about that. Do you? Defaults from Chinese corporations between 2019 and 2020 was more than $20 billion, which that's a sizable bank bailout, even that in and of itself, right? In 2020, banks lent out a record high $3 trillion in new loans. So everyone was printing during Corona. Everyone was printing. Now, also in 2020, they came out with this 3 red line system that was supposed to stop systemic crisis, and it just had to do with their ability to pay back loans and how much money that they were able to take out in debt. And based upon where they fell on these lines, they would start to cap the growth rate and the amount of debt that they could take on, right? It was supposed to control house prices and manage land markets. Clearly, it didn't do that. Okay, so the ripple effect is starting to happen, and it's already affecting insurers, which I'm reading about. Literally, I'm shooting this morning. I wrote this last night, but there's more that's already happening. The ripple effect is getting greater. Maybe we'll stuff in a few tweets and data points here, but it's already affected other construction operators, okay? Like Fantasia, RNF, Suna, China, whatever the fuck that's called. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. But it's starting to also spread into banks, insurers, as I just mentioned as well. And so the next level up would be the bigger banks, the IGs, etc. It gets worse though, because recently, I'm not sure if you heard about this, but the World Bank, the IMF brought on a law firm, Wilmer Hale, at the request of the ethics committee to essentially investigate what's going on with the female lead of the IMF right now. The U.S. Treasury mentioned that they are analyzing serious findings, as well as the obvious thing that the report points out is that the World Bank got money from China as what looks to be a bribe to get increased shareholding position within the World Bank and to get high marks in the Doing Business report that was released in 2020. So this is very interesting what it dives into. The report said a toxic culture and fear of retaliation surrounded the Doing Business report, and said members of the team felt like they could not challenge any order from the bank's president or CEO without risking their jobs. Okay, that's from Reuters. Going forward, we will be working a new approach to assessing the business and investment climate, the World Bank has now published, aka the Doing Business report is no more, okay? They got their hands slapped. August retail report in China, they were expecting 7%. It came in at 2.5%. And this is a side effect of aggressive nationalism, I guess would be the best way to call it, where we're penalizing Jack Ma and other entrepreneurs. They deleted that the first female Chinese billionaire in China. They deleted all of her social media because she was getting too big, too much of a voice, too entrepreneurial, too independent, right? They want to break up Alipay. All the other aggressive changes they've made recently with literally just saying, hey, stock market's ours, your money is our money across the board. Well, there's side effects to that. People won't be spending money as much. They won't feel good about what's happening as much. And so Goldman has laid out some impact and ripple effect based on scenarios based on what's going to happen now. So we've got that here. And then essentially what you should be paying attention to. We should know as soon as Tuesday if Evergrande is technically defaulted. They've got 2 payments coming up. One is due on Monday, and they've got a 1-day grace period. So if they don't work out anything and they don't pay, well, technically they're in default. And the government has already said that they are not planning on bailing out Evergrande because it's too big. And they think that there's going to be more people, more banks, and more construction companies that get in line wanting a bailout. Here's the dates to pay attention to, and what you should really know is, yes, they've got an $83.5 million interest payment coming up on the 23rd, and they've got a $47.5 million interest payment due on the 29th. I think that's the 23rd. Yep. Okay, so it's the 21st now. So there's your first date right there, is they got to make this $83.5 million interest payment. So there you go. You're pretty much caught up in one video on everything going on in 10 minutes with the Evergrande debacle. I do think it could, it's already spreading and it's already getting priced in. We saw commodities dump, which took Bitcoin with it. We saw S&P and, pretty much wide markets already dump on Monday open. We'll probably see continued blood through at least the middle of the week as more and more is released and more people figure out what's going on, as well as all the foreign investors, all the US investors have already been selling off positions to try and hedge. But the bigger fear here is that, Evergrande was sitting on a sizable amount of US equities as well. Are they going to have to be selling this out? I mean, is the government going to have to sell these positions out? Are other companies going to have to sell these positions out to cover losses, to cover position? And I think that's what you're seeing. That's already happening. So if we're thinking it, that means it's already happening. I mean, how long that's going to last, I don't know. And then if we see, so the thing I'll tell you, now you know the dates to pay attention to, but the next big domino would be is if we see other companies start to ripple in default, like just one other company start to show signs of default and weakness, then you know that this is probably going to be something that's systematic, and it's going to have a huge ripple effect, and to really buckle up because it's gonna start to really stretch out into international markets. So anyways, that's all I got for you. Comment below if you got something to say. Like this video if you want more people to see it. Subscribe, hit the bell notification, turn it to all if you want more videos from us in the future. See you again real soon in another video.